Now this is the Leica Q Typ 116. I'm just going to call it the Leica Q in this video because it gets a little bit too much saying Type 116 every time. So this is the Leica Q. This camera is 10 years old this year, later on this year actually, 2025. And it's still an incredibly good camera. Now I purchased this camera from the team over at Rangefinder. They have a really good pre-owned, second-hand, used camera page and lenses. I have a really bad habit of checking that every morning when I'm having my coffee. And I came across this, which is a Leica Q. Now this camera has only been used a couple of times. They said it was in basically 100% condition, and they weren't wrong. The neck strap and some other items in the box weren't even used, and the camera has no marks on it at all. It is literally brand new condition. The only time I've ever seen a Q in this condition is when I bought it and taken it out of the box brand new. Now I paid 3,000 New Zealand dollars, or just under 3,000 New Zealand dollars for this camera. May seem a bit expensive for a 10-year-old camera, but this is a Leica Q. The Q3 at the moment in New Zealand is 13,000 New Zealand dollars, so this is $10,000 cheaper. And it shares a lot with the Q3. Obviously things have improved and it's got more megapixels and so on, but there's a lot of things it still shares with that camera. The only competition this camera had at the time of its release was the Sony RX1, and then there was the RX1 Mark II, which was a fixed camera lens as well, but that had a 35mm f2 Zeiss lens. And it looks like Sony's abandoned that system. It's a shame because it was a really nice camera system. I actually owned one for a while, but I prefer the Q. The lens is a 28mm f1.7 Summilux. It has optical stabilization and has a leaf shutter as well. This has a 24 megapixel full frame sensor. I think 24 megapixels is a nice balance for resolution and ISO performance. The Q2 had a 47 megapixel sensor, but it was actually about a stop and a half worse in low light than the Q1 or the Q. The Q3 obviously is better. There's 9 years gap between those two cameras, so it is actually better in low light, but only just. And obviously you're getting a 60 megapixel sensor in that camera. Now obviously the Q has this huge lens attached to it, which is a 28mm f1.7 Summilux lens made by Leica. The Sony RX1 had a Zeiss lens. I believe that lens was actually made by Zeiss, and Sony and Zeiss worked together on building that camera. This is actually a Leica lens. The equivalent lens, if I was to go for a 28mm f1.4 Summilux for my MP, is around about $14,000. I think it is. Yes, it is. I've got some notes here. It's 14,000 New Zealand dollars for this same lens. But the M lens doesn't have close focusing ability. It doesn't have autofocus, and it doesn't have optical stabilization in it. So the M lens is actually not as good as this lens, but obviously the M lens is a completely different lens because it's made to fit the M system. This one is actually attached to the camera. You're always going to get a better image quality with a lens and a sensor that are combined together. Basically you're always going to get better. This lens is actually incredibly good. So on the front of the lens you have this really nice Leica hood. There is a B+W filter in there. I seem to have a lot of 49mm filters. I've owned quite a few Qs as well, but we won't talk about that. You have your aperturing, which is auto 1.7 all the way up to f16, and it's a really nice aperturing. Obviously this camera is brand new essentially, so everything on here is nice and tight. You do need to be aware that these can get loose, so do check that when you go to buy a second-hand Q. The thread on the lens, I believe, is aluminium, or for you American people, aluminum. So if you ever have trouble getting the thread on, just turn it the opposite way until you feel it click and then tighten it up. Don't ever try and tighten these hoods up if it's tight, because you will strip that thread because it is aluminium. And it goes around nice and tight, and there you go. It's a beautiful hood. There is actually a ring in the box that goes on the front to protect the thread. If you don't want to use the hood, use the hood because it will protect the front of the lens. You've got your focus, which obviously is autofocus, but if you push this little button here on the tab, push it, it goes into manual focus, and it's a real manual focus lens. At the back you've got this other ring here. So you turn that and you'll see it turns into macro mode, which I don't think there's many lenses that do that. Now what you do need to be careful of is don't leave it in a macro mode, because if you go to take a photo of something a little bit further away, it won't focus and you're wondering what's going on. The focus is playing up and it's not the camera, it's you, because you forgot to take it out of macro mode. So the Q is a rangefinder style camera. What that means is the viewfinder is over to one side, but it's not a rangefinder. Okay, this is a rangefinder. Okay, has a rangefinder patch here. Very different type of camera. That's an optical viewfinder. This is an EVF, but it's an incredibly good EVF, even for a 10-year-old camera. This is the same resolution as the Q2. Even the screen is the same resolution as the Q2. Only the Q3 has a higher resolution screen and EVF. But this EVF is incredibly good for a 10-year-old camera. It was way ahead of its time. The reason I have my MP here, sorry, the screen's really covered in fingerprints, is the button layout. This is the older style. This is from the M240 series cameras. It replicates that kind of. They were squarer buttons. They're round, but you have all these buttons for the menu, ISO, function buttons, and so on. You only have these 3 buttons on here. It's a much simpler design on the Q2 and the Q3, but their buttons are on this side. But anyway, it's the same style buttons like this, but these buttons are really nice. I was kind of dreading going back to the older style buttons, but I actually do really like these buttons. They work really, really well. So at the bottom of the camera, you have the battery door, which has the memory card, and it has the battery. Now, I'm going to show you this battery there. Now, that says Lumix on there. The reason it says Lumix is this camera uses Panasonic batteries. What Leica did, this is the Leica one, which doesn't actually have Leica on it anywhere. You can see it's got this little tiny Leica logo there. But this is a Lumix. These are identical batteries. They're exactly the same batteries. So you can buy batteries for the Q. Very easy. Most camera stores carry Panasonic batteries. These are in stock in New Zealand. The Leica batteries are not in stock in New Zealand, so I can't buy these anyway. And these are almost a third of the price of the Leica battery. They're exactly the same. This is the new style Leica battery that's for the SL and the Q series. And then you've also got in here, you've got the M batteries. But these batteries, you can't use any other brand. You can only use Leica batteries. I wouldn't use any of the cheaper brands out there. Some of the cheap Chinese batteries, don't ever put those batteries in your camera because they do swell up and they will get jammed inside. The Panasonic batteries are really affordable and they are exactly the same. And like I said, they're almost a third of the price in New Zealand compared to the Leica batteries. You also do have a couple of ports, if you can see them there. There is a USB and a micro HDMI, because this camera can shoot video, believe it or not. There is a video record button at the top here. Don't shoot video with it. It's not that good. If you need video and that's all you have, then shoot the video because it's only 1080. But yeah, it's not really that good. On the top, you got your on switch, and then it goes to single and continuous. I'll talk about the autofocus in a minute. You have your exposure confrontation dial, which is how I've got it set up, and then you have your shutter dial. That's it. It's as simple as that. It's not much different, to be truthful, than the M, which is what they replicated. But again, this camera is 10 years old. So when I purchased this camera, Rangefinder did say to me, "Are you sure you want to buy this, Daryl? Because the autofocus is not that good on that camera." It's actually not that bad. I remember my old Q, my silver Q, the autofocus was really good from point to point. If you want to use continuous autofocus, well, that's another story. It's not great, but it gets the job done. It's there, but I only use single point focus on here, or I use the manual focus. So that's not a problem. But it does have a little bit of problem with continuous autofocus. It tends to have this like really bad wobble effect, like the old Panasonic cameras, which, i.e. some of the parts inside this camera are from Panasonic, obviously. When I got the camera, it was running firmware 2.0. It's now 3.1. I recommend updating the firmware on the Q to the latest one, because then you can use the Leica Photos app, and this camera works really well with the Leica Photos app. It's a little bit slow compared to an M or an SL3 uploading photos via the app, but it works and it gets the job done, which is really, really nice. It's nice to know that this camera still works with the app, even though it's been out for 10 years. Now let's talk about a couple of things you need to be aware of if you're thinking about buying an original Q. This camera was not weather sealed. The Q2 and the Q3 are weather sealed cameras. This is not. It had a problem with dust inside the lens and especially on the sensor. I don't know if you can see them. On the top there's 2 microphone grills there, and on the back there's a speaker grill. You'll notice most people that own a Q have these taped up, and I recommend you do that. I've also been told that dust can get in through this door. If you're not going to use these ports on the side, put tape over it. Anywhere you can prevent dust getting in, do it, because it saves you getting this sent away to have the sensor cleaned. You can't take this to a shop and get the sensor cleaned. It has to go back to Leica, because obviously they have to dismantle the camera to get to the sensor. Dust inside the lens, I've not seen that very often. It can happen. If you get a lot of dust in there, it will affect the image, but a little bit of dust really won't affect the image. But always check when you go to buy the camera. Now, a way to check if there's dust on the sensor, if you're looking at buying a camera, when you go to look at the camera to purchase it, take a photo of the sky, a blue sky or a cloudy sky. Don't point it at the sun, because you'll end up hurting your eyes or maybe damaging the camera. But just point the camera at, say, the sky, shoot at f11. If you can, shoot at f16, do that. Take the card out of the camera, put it into an iPad or a laptop and check the image on a bigger screen. You'll see the dust spots if there are any. This camera has 0 dust spots. I checked it, obviously because it's only been used a couple of times. So that's a big thing you need to be aware of. That's probably the biggest problem with the Qs that I know of, is dust on the sensor. It's a very, very common thing. So tape up as many of the holes as you can to prevent any dust getting inside. Another issue is the buttons can be quite sticky. I've not seen that on any of my Qs or any of my friends' Qs, but I have heard about it. So check all the buttons and the pad here and the button inside, all of them. Check the dials, check the aperturing, because that can become loose, and the focus. Just turn everything, check everything when you go to buy the camera. Also, check inside the battery compartment for anything that's bent any of the terminals. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to find any problems, but it's always worth looking. Oh, put the battery in the wrong way. Because you don't want to get a faulty camera. But the biggest thing you should check is dust on the sensor. I will have another video in a few weeks and give you my genuine thoughts of using this 10-year-old camera in 2025. My M11P is my everyday carry. This is also now my everyday carry. I'm going to carry 2 of these cameras because it's nice to have autofocus, and I do like the look of this 28mm 1.7 Summilux lens. It's an absolute beautiful lens, and the images that come out of this camera are absolutely outstanding. So I will have another video in a few weeks on the Q, just to let you know what I think about it. If you have any questions about the Q, please leave me a comment down below. Or if you know of any other issues about the Q that you want to share with other people before they buy one, again, put it down in the comment section. Don't forget to check out rangefinder.com.hk, and my promo code for free shipping is down below in the description. So that's it for this quick video. I really hope you guys have enjoyed it. And as always, thank you so much for watching.